When my daughter told me I'd die alone in that house, she said it like it was a fact, not an insult. She stood there with her arms folded, her voice steady, her face blank. I looked at her, the same little girl who once begged me to check for monsters under her bed, now looking at me like I was one of them. That sentence didn't just sting, it hollowed me out. Because somewhere inside, I knew she believed it. Maybe she wanted it to be true. You spend your whole life building something, a home, a family, a sense of belonging, and one day it's just gone. Not in a fire, not in a flood, but in silence. In cold words thrown across a kitchen table between a parent and a child who stopped seeing each other as human. The house she was talking about wasn't just a house, it was where I raised her. The floors still creak in the same spots where she used to run in circles. The back porch still smells like the summer rain from the year she learned to ride a bike. Every corner had a memory embedded into it, like the house itself had been keeping our story alive. But to her, it was just a relic, a symbol of everything she wanted to escape. It didn't happen overnight. These things never do. The distance grows like rust, slow, quiet, until the structure starts to fall apart. First, she stopped calling as much. Then, visits became shorter. Then, every conversation turned into a small argument that didn't matter, but somehow ruined the day anyway. She said I was controlling. I said she was ungrateful. Maybe we were both right. When she got married, I thought things might get better. Her husband, Mark, seemed like a good man, quiet, respectful, worked hard. He'd always call me sir, even when I told him not to. But after a few years, their marriage fell apart. I didn't pry. I figured if she wanted me to know, she'd tell me. She didn't. What I did notice was the bitterness that settled into her voice whenever his name came up. She'd talk about him like he was the reason the sun stopped shining. And maybe that's why what I did later felt so poetic. Because when she said those words, "You'll die alone in that house," something in me snapped, but not in anger. More like clarity. Like the fog of years of guilt and restraint suddenly cleared, and I saw things as they truly were. That night, I sat on the porch with a glass of whiskey, watching the lights of the neighboring houses fade into the dark. I thought about what dying alone really meant. Because truthfully, I already felt alone. Not because I had no one, but because the one person who mattered most had already left me in every way that counts. The next morning, I woke up with an idea so sharp it scared even me. I pulled out the old file cabinet, the one that held all the property papers, the house, the land, the will, everything. I stared at the documents, thinking about how people fight their whole lives over things they didn't build. And how sometimes the most powerful move isn't to hold on, but to let go in a way that stings. I drove across town that afternoon, to Mark's house. I hadn't seen him since the divorce, and he looked surprised when he opened the door. He had that look divorced men often have, half tired, half free. We talked for a while, small talk at first, until I finally told him what I came for. "Mark," I said, "how would you like to own a house?" He laughed, thought I was joking. But when I handed him the papers, the laughter stopped. He asked me why, probably 5 times in a row, each one softer than the last. And I told him the truth, or at least part of it. I said, because I'd rather this place go to someone who knows what it feels like to lose everything, than to someone who doesn't value what she had. He tried to refuse, said it wasn't right, but I told him it wasn't charity, it was consequence, the universe's way of balancing things out. I could still hear my daughter's voice in my head, echoing those cruel words, and I realized she thought she could hurt me by predicting my loneliness. What she didn't understand was that loneliness stops being painful when you make peace with it, when you own it. In the weeks after, the news spread fast. Small towns have long ears. My daughter called me in a rage, screaming through the phone so loud I had to hold it away from my ear. She accused me of betrayal, manipulation, even insanity. Said I did it just to humiliate her. Maybe I did. Maybe I wanted her to feel, for once, what it's like to lose something you thought would always be yours. But deep down, there was more to it than revenge. There was a kind of message in it, one she might not understand for years. You can't keep burning bridges and expect the world to keep building new ones for you. I remember the silence after she hung up. It was heavier than the shouting, the kind of silence that fills a house like smoke. I walked from room to room, touching the walls, the frames, the old photographs. Every object in that place had a heartbeat, and for the first time, I didn't feel trapped by it. I felt free. People think letting go means weakness, but sometimes it's the final act of power. I wasn't trying to hurt her anymore. I was just done trying to make her see me as something I wasn't. The strangest thing happened a few days later. Mark showed up again. He said he couldn't accept the house, said it didn't feel right owning something that wasn't meant for him. But when he stepped inside, he froze for a moment, looking around like he'd just walked into a memory. I could see it on his face, the ghosts of family dinners, laughter, arguments, everything that once was. He asked if he could stay for a while, just to sit. So we sat together in the living room, two men connected by the same woman in completely different ways. We didn't talk much, didn't need to. The silence between us wasn't uncomfortable, it was honest.
As he left, he said something I'll never forget. "You know, she might never forgive you for this." And I said, "That's fine. I didn't do it to be forgiven." That night, I slept better than I had in years. Not because I'd gotten even, but because for the first time, I'd acted without guilt, without fear, just pure, unfiltered truth. But the real twist came later, weeks later, when my daughter showed up at the door again. Not to apologize, not to reconcile, but for something else entirely. And when she told me why she came, I realized the story wasn't over at all. It was just getting started. She stood at the doorway, trembling, not with anger this time, but something closer to disbelief. Her eyes scanned the porch, the walls, the garden, like she couldn't quite accept that this place she'd dismissed so easily wasn't hers anymore. I could tell she had practiced what she was going to say all the way here. Her voice started off steady, too steady, like someone pretending not to be nervous. "So, you really gave it to him?" she said. "You actually did it?" I didn't answer right away. I wanted to see if she'd say anything else, anything real. But she just stood there, waiting for a reaction. So I nodded. "Yes, the house is his now." Her jaw clenched. She laughed, that sharp, mocking kind of laugh people use to hide the sting. "You're unbelievable," she said. "You'd rather give everything to my ex-husband than your own daughter?" I set down the mug of coffee I was holding and looked at her. "You told me I'd die alone here," I said quietly. "You made it clear this place meant nothing to you. So I gave it to someone who might actually respect it." For a moment, I thought she might break down, but she didn't. She turned the anger up instead. "You're just trying to punish me. You want me to feel guilty, like I'm the bad one here." "No," I said. "You already did that to yourself." That shut her up. Her face hardened, but her eyes flickered, the way they used to when she was caught lying as a kid. I could see the tears forming, but she wouldn't let them fall. She stormed past me into the house, ignoring the fact that it wasn't hers to walk through anymore. Every step she took echoed like a memory being shattered. I followed her, slow and quiet, letting her rage burn itself out. She went straight to the kitchen, grabbed the old picture frame off the counter, the one with her and her mother. I hadn't seen her touch it in years. She stared at it for a long moment before setting it back down, her voice softer now. "You think this makes you strong, don't you? But all it does is prove how lonely you are." Maybe she was right. Maybe strength and loneliness are just different sides of the same coin. But I wasn't going to let her weaponize my solitude anymore. I leaned against the counter and said, "I spent years trying to buy your love with patience, forgiveness, and silence. None of it worked. So I stopped buying." She turned to face me, her expression unreadable.
Then she said something that caught me off guard. "Mark doesn't even want this place. He told me." I smiled. "Then maybe he'll take better care of it than you did with him." That line hit her like a slap. For a second, I regretted it. Then I didn't, because sometimes the truth has to hurt before it heals anything. She left that day in silence, No goodbye, no look back. I thought that was the end of it. But life rarely ends neatly. It twists, folds, and waits until you least expect it to turn on you again. A week later, Mark called me. His voice sounded different, conflicted. He said my daughter had come to see him. She asked me to give the house back, he told me, said it was a family matter. I laughed, not because it was funny, but because I could already picture it. She always believed everything could be reversed if she argued long enough. "And what did you tell her?" I asked. "I told her no," he said. "But she's not going to stop." He was right. 2 days later, she came back, this time with papers. Some kind of legal attempt to challenge the transfer. I don't even know who told her it could work. But she showed up with that same fire in her eyes, waving documents like they were weapons. I didn't get angry. I just invited her in, made coffee for both of us, and set the papers aside. "You know," I said, "when you were little, you used to draw houses like this. You'd always draw 3 people inside, me, you, and your mom. Never a fourth, never anyone else. And now, all these years later, you're fighting to take it from me. For what? To prove you still have control?" Her lips trembled. "It's not about control," she snapped. "It's about what's right." "What's right," I said, "isn't always what makes you look good." She didn't have a reply for that. She just looked at me, eyes glistening, jaw tight. There was something behind all that anger, something closer to guilt, or maybe shame, but she buried it under pride. "You always think you're the wise one," she muttered. "The victim. Maybe you're the reason Mom left. Maybe you're the reason no one can stand being around you." It's strange how the people you love the most can find exactly the right words to hurt you. I didn't flinch, but inside I felt that old ache open up again. I looked at her, and for the first time, I didn't see my daughter. I saw a stranger wearing her face. A stranger who had learned how to fight dirty because that's how the world had treated her. Maybe I'd failed her somewhere along the way. Or maybe she'd just grown up to be the kind of person who believed winning was more important than being kind. I said quietly, "If you think I'm the reason everyone leaves, then maybe you should ask yourself why you keep running." That made her pause. Just a fraction of a second, but enough. She didn't say anything after that. She gathered her papers, shoved them into her bag, and walked out again. I didn't chase her this time. I didn't even call out. Some silences speak louder than words. The days that followed were strange. The house, now technically Mark's, still felt like mine in every corner. But there was a lightness in it now, like the air wasn't filled with the ghosts of old arguments anymore. Then one evening, Mark called again. "You might want to sit down," he said. "She's here. She's been staying with me for a few days." I froze. "What do you mean, staying?" She showed up crying, said she had nowhere else to go. I didn't know what to do. A long pause hung between us. I could hear her voice faintly in the background, muffled, maybe arguing. It hit me then that for all her defiance, she had finally found herself in a place she couldn't control anymore. "Take care of her," I said, "even if she doesn't deserve it right now." He sighed. "I'll try." That night I didn't sleep. I kept thinking about how strange life can be. The same man she once cursed was now the only one willing to shelter her. The same house she mocked now had her name tangled in its story again. And though I didn't say it out loud, a part of me wondered, was this punishment or was it mercy? The next morning, I got in my truck and drove toward the house. I told myself I was just checking on things, but really, I needed to see her. Needed to see if the woman standing there was still my daughter or if she had turned into something else entirely. When I arrived, the sun was setting behind the trees, painting the sky in colors that looked too calm for what was about to happen. She was outside, sitting on the steps, her face pale, her eyes swollen. When she saw me, she didn't yell this time. She just whispered, "You came." And for the first time in a long, long while, I didn't have an answer. She looked smaller somehow, like the weight of the world had finally caught up to her. The woman who once stood in my kitchen, spitting venom and pride, now sat quietly with her arms around her knees. The air between us was heavy, thick with things neither of us knew how to say. "I didn't know where else to go," she said finally. Her voice was so soft I almost didn't recognize it. "Everything's gone, Dad. The job, the apartment, even the friends. It's like the whole world just decided to turn its back on me all at once." I didn't say anything. I just let her talk. She needed to spill it all out. The pain, the anger, the exhaustion. Sometimes silence is the only way to let truth breathe. "I thought I was doing everything right," she continued, "working hard, being independent, not needing anyone. But now I can't even look at myself without feeling like I messed up everything I touched." I sat down beside her. The wooden steps groaned under our weight. For a few seconds, neither of us looked at each other. We just stared at the yard, the same one where she used to chase fireflies when she was little. "You didn't mess everything up," I said. "You just forgot what mattered." She turned her head toward me slowly, eyes glistening.
"And what's that?" "People," I said. "Not winning, not being right, not proving a point. Just people. The ones who stay when life stops clapping for you." She didn't reply, but a tear slipped down her cheek, and she didn't bother to hide it this time. "I was so angry at you," she whispered. "After Mom left, I blamed you for everything. For her leaving, for how broken things felt. I thought if I could just get away from you, I'd finally feel free." I nodded. "And did you?" She gave a hollow laugh. "For a while, until I realized freedom without roots just feels like drifting." That hit me deeper than I expected, because I'd felt the same way, rooted in a house that had turned from a home into a memory. She took a deep breath. "When you gave the house to Mark, it broke something in me. I thought you were trying to destroy me. But then I realized, maybe you were just done trying to fix me." I looked at her, and for the first time in years, I didn't see defiance in her eyes. I saw recognition. Painful, honest recognition. "You remember that night you told me I'd die alone here?" I asked. She winced. "Yeah." "I think," I said, "what you really meant was that you didn't want to be like me, stuck, alone, clinging to something old. But here we are, both alone anyway. The difference is, I made peace with it. You haven't yet." She looked down at her hands, picking at her nails. "I don't know how." "That's the thing," I said. "You don't start by knowing how. You start by admitting you can't do it all alone." The silence that followed was different this time. Not cold, not tense, just quiet enough for both of us to hear the truth sitting between us. After a while, Mark came out onto the porch. He looked unsure, like a man caught between two storms. He nodded at me. "Didn't think I'd see you here." "I wasn't planning on it," I said. He smiled faintly. "She's been through hell this week. I didn't know what else to do but let her stay." "I know," I said. "You did the right thing." He looked at her, then at me. "You two should talk more. You've both got the same kind of stubbornness. It's scary." She gave a weak smile at that, and for a second I caught a glimpse of my little girl again, the one who used to giggle uncontrollably whenever I pretended to be the monster under her bed. When Mark went back inside, she turned to me again. "Do you hate me?" she asked quietly. The question hit me harder than anything she'd said before. "No," I said. "I don't hate you. I hated what you became for a while. The pride, the anger, but not you. Never you." She covered her face with her hands, shoulders shaking. I let her cry. I didn't try to comfort her with words, because words had built this wall between us in the first place. I just placed a hand on her shoulder, and she leaned into it like she hadn't let herself be held in years. After a while, she said, "Do you think he'll forgive me, Mark?" "I think he already has," I said.
But that's not the question you should be asking.
Then what is?
Whether you can forgive yourself. She took a long, shaky breath. "I don't know if I can." "Then start with me," I said. "We'll figure the rest out later." The porch light flickered as the night deepened. The air smelled like rain was coming, and the world felt still for the first time in a long while. She looked up at the sky, wiping her eyes. "I don't know why you still care after everything I said." "Because I'm your father," I said, "and sometimes love isn't about deserving, it's about surviving." She nodded slowly, like she finally understood, but I could tell she wasn't just thinking about me. She was thinking about herself, about the life she'd built on pride, and how easily it had crumbled. The next morning, I came back with breakfast. She was sitting at the table, flipping through the house papers. "I'm not taking it," she said, before I could even ask. "It's not mine anymore, and maybe it shouldn't be." I smiled. "That's the first smart thing you've said in years." She laughed, a real laugh this time. It was quiet, almost shy, but it was there. We spent that morning talking, not about the house or the past, but about simple things. The garden, the dog she used to have, her job, the one she lost. For the first time in forever, it felt like I had my daughter back. Not the angry woman who came to my door, but the person she'd buried underneath all that bitterness. Before I left, she said, "I still don't understand why you gave it to him." "Because he's the only one who reminded me of you when you were kind," I said, "and I wanted this place to have that again." She looked down, eyes glassy. "You really think I can change?" "I don't think you can," I said, standing. "I think you already started." As I walked back to my truck, the wind picked up, carrying the faint smell of rain and earth. I turned around one last time. She was standing on the porch, watching me, not with judgment this time, but something else. Gratitude, maybe, or the fragile start of peace. But as I started the engine, I couldn't shake the feeling that the story wasn't finished yet. Because if life had taught me anything, it's that just when you think the storm is over, that's usually when the real reckoning begins. It started a few days later. The calm after our talk hadn't lasted long. Peace rarely does when it's built on too much history. I was at home, sitting by the window, when I got a call from Mark. His tone was serious this time. "You might want to come down here," he said. "Something's happening." My stomach sank. "What kind of something?" He hesitated. "She's talking to someone about selling the place. Said she just wants to get rid of it and start fresh." I told her she can't, it's still in my name. But she's not herself. The drive there felt longer than usual. My hands gripped the steering wheel tighter than they needed to. I didn't know whether to be angry, sad, or just tired of the cycle repeating itself. Every time I thought she'd learned, life or pride found a way to drag her back down. When I got there, she was outside again, pacing near the porch with her phone pressed to her ear. She looked startled when she saw me. "I didn't call you," she said defensively. "I know," I replied. "He did." I nodded toward the house. Her jaw tightened. "He shouldn't have." I walked closer. "Maybe not, but you shouldn't be doing this either." She crossed her arms. "It's not yours to decide anymore." I took a deep breath. "You're right, it's not, but it's still mine to care about." She turned away, staring out at the horizon, silent. For a long time, we just stood there, like two ghosts haunting the same memory. Finally, she spoke. I don't know what I'm doing anymore. Everything I touch falls apart. This house feels cursed." "It's not cursed," I said softly. "It's just honest. It shows you what you bring into it." That broke something in her. She dropped her phone into the grass and covered her face, her shoulders shaking. "I keep trying to start over," she said through tears. "But it's like the past keeps dragging me back. I hate who I've become." I didn't move. Sometimes people don't need comfort. They need to face the wreckage they've made without anyone rescuing them from it. After a while, she looked up, eyes red and raw. "You think there's a way back from this?" "There's always a way back," I said. "But it starts when you stop blaming the fire for burning and start asking why you kept walking into it."
She nodded slowly, like the words stung but fit. Then she whispered, "Can I come home?" The question hung in the air like a fragile glass ornament. One wrong word and it would shatter. "This is still your home," I said, "even if it doesn't belong to you anymore." She blinked, confused. How can it be both? Because home isn't about ownership, it's about peace. You can live anywhere in the world, but if you're not at peace with yourself, you're homeless no matter how big the roof. She sat down on the steps again, hugging her knees. "You always talk like that, like everything's a lesson." I smiled faintly. "Maybe it is. Maybe that's the only way I make sense of things." She chuckled weakly. "You sound like Mom when she used to try to fix everything with advice." The mention of her mother caught me off guard. It had been years since either of us said her name out loud. "You still think she left because of me?" I asked quietly. She didn't answer right away. "I used to. But lately, I think she left because she didn't know how to stay. Maybe she was scared of what we were becoming." That was the closest I'd ever heard her come to forgiveness. And maybe that was enough. She wiped her face with her sleeve. "I saw her last year, you know. She's living in Oregon now." I froze. "You saw her?" She nodded. "She wanted to meet for lunch. Said she'd been thinking about you."
She looked. Older, but softer. Happier, maybe. I didn't tell you because I thought it'd make things worse. I felt something twist in my chest. Old memories, old ghosts resurfacing. "You should have told me," I said quietly. "I know, I just didn't want to reopen everything." "Well," I said, "some things have to be reopened before they can heal." She looked at me, eyes searching. "You still love her?" "Always will," I said. "But that love changed shape a long time ago. It became something quieter." She smiled faintly. "I think that's the only kind that lasts." The conversation drifted into silence again, but this time it felt right, like we'd finally reached the same page after years of reading different chapters. As I got up to leave, she grabbed my hand. It startled me. Her grip was gentle but desperate, like she didn't want the moment to end. "Don't give up on me again," she said. "I never did," I replied. "I just stopped fighting you for the wrong reasons." When I got home that night, I sat in the same chair on the porch, listening to the crickets. For the first time, the house didn't feel like an empty monument to my mistakes. It felt alive again. Because maybe healing isn't about rebuilding what broke. It's about realizing you don't need it to look the same anymore. Over the next few weeks, she started visiting more often. Sometimes she came just to talk, sometimes to help fix small things around the property. We didn't talk about the house papers again. We didn't talk about the past much either. Instead, we talked about the little things: the weather, her new job interviews, the way the dog next door kept digging holes in my yard. It was normal. And after all the chaos, normal felt like a miracle. One afternoon, while we were repainting the porch railing, she stopped mid-brush and said, "I've been thinking, maybe you were right about letting go being the only way to win sometimes." I looked at her, surprised. "What made you say that?" She smiled softly. "Because the more I fight for control, the more I lose it. But when I stop trying to own everything, I actually start to feel lighter." I nodded. That's the secret most people never figure out. She took a deep breath. "I don't know if I'll ever deserve forgiveness for what I said to you." "Forgiveness isn't earned," I said. "It's given, and it's already yours." The paintbrush trembled slightly in her hand as she looked down, smiling through tears. "You really are impossible, you know that." "Runs in the family," I said. We laughed, genuine laughter this time, the kind that shakes the dust off your soul. But even as we worked, even as the light hit her face in a way that made her look like a child again, something in the air told me this peace was fragile. Life doesn't hand out redemption without one final test, and I had no idea that test was already on its way, hidden, quiet, and closer